right, so Baruch Hashem. We're going to start off here, like I said, with the Musar Avicha from Rabbi Avraham Yitzhak HaKohen. And we're going to do the introduction together. And it hopefully we'll be able to, after the introduction, we'll be able to get into at least the first part itself. But here, he starts off here, the necessity of composing notes for study and learning. And what he did, by the way, to give a little background from Rabbi Kook, Rabbi Kook was the first rabbi of Palestine under the British Mandate. He did not live long enough to become the first chief Ashkenaz rabbi, but he had a very close contemporary of his, which was Rabbi Ben Uziel, who became the first chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel. But he also had the unique position of being the first Sephardic rabbi, also under the British Mandate of Palestina, as they called it then. And then, of course, whenever Israel was founded as a nation, Rabbi Ben Uziel was officially named the first chief Sephardic rabbi. And as people will be able to tell in this video, we're here in the lobby of the JCC instead of Auditorium A because there's a play going on. But hey, this is going to be real natural. It's gonna be. You probably hear some kids yelling and screaming. Maybe some shoes going to fly in front of the screen. It's going to be great. This is real learning. So he's going to talk here about something he studied. I don't know if you're familiar, if anybody even that listens to this video, if they're familiar with Rabbi Israel Salanter. Does that name sound familiar to you? Rabbi Israel Salanter is the one who developed the Musar movement, very close in proximity to the Hasidic movement, like with the Baal Shem Tov. But those that were dedicating, now Rabbi Israel Salanter, he had a problem that he saw in the yeshivot in Ashkenaz. He saw that they were becoming so intellectually motivated just by learning Gemara. He felt that there was ruchniut missing from the learning, the spirituality. So he developed the Musar movement that would come.
Musar means characteristic?
Musar is characteristic, yeah. So Musar, it's interesting. We see here, like in the Musar, so you have the word Mem, Vav, and Samech, and Resh. Musar is the same shorish as the word Meser. Meser in Hebrew means message. But Musar, Masora, is also the same word. Like when we read, I'm learning with Zechariah right now in Pirkei Avot. So the Masora is the tradition. But whenever you change the nikud, it becomes a whole different meaning. So it's the same root as the word Musar. Musar are ethical teachings, right, that you give to someone. So Rabbi Israel Salanter had developed a technique in order to keep Jews connected spiritually, outside of their regular learning of, Limud Torah. When we use the word Limud Torah, there's Talmud Torah, there's Limud Torah, and then there's specifically the learning of Gemara. So what Rabbi Kook comes and does later, he comes and he basically combines the intellectual learning with the learning ruchniut, spiritual learning, right? Because you have to have a balance between the two. Now, in the lands of Sepharad, we have like a balance between the two. We have the Rambam, right? You have Rabbeinu Bachya, which he'll mention here, who wrote Chavavot Levavot, Duties of the Heart, right? A great book. And basically talking about, look, no matter how much you learn, no matter how your brain is sharp, spitz, right? You still have to have spirituality. Hello. We are descended from Nevi'im, from prophets. So Rabbi Kook, he's going to introduce here some steps here at the beginning here. And we're going to go through those steps, and we're going to talk about it. Okay? So I'll read the Hebrew, and then we'll go into the English part. So Rabbi Kook starts us off with the introduction here in Musar Avicha. נראה שאי אפשר לצאת ידי חובה בעניין חובות הלב רק אם יסדר ספר לעצמו בלימודים הדרושים לו בזה. He says, it seems that a person can only fulfill their obligation in terms of the duties of the heart if they compose their own work relating to the studies that they need to pursue in this field. Right? Now what's he say? He says here in the Perush on the bottom, and he brings the Maharsha. The Maharsha is a famous rabbi. He has a commentary, especially on the Agadot in the Talmud, right? And he's from Poland. He's a famous Rav from Poland, the Maharsha. He brings on Bava Batra in the Gemara, and he says, which states that study that has the greatest impact is the study that is combined with writing. So you should learn and write at the same time. Right away he says this. And he's going to go into detail why it's important when you study, why you should write. And it's going to be logical. It's hegioni. It's logical. So what does he say? Additionally, you can see the introduction of Chovot HaLevavot that we mentioned from Rabbeinu Bachya, duties of the heart. What does he say? So Rabbeinu Bachya explains the reason he composed his work is as follows. It became difficult for me to remember it all by heart, right? And I was afraid that I would forget what I had learned of them and that the ideals would unravel in my mind. I decided to write them down in a book so that I might expect of myself always to know them and bring myself to perform them, right? Because generally speaking, when we see something, especially in our own writing, you know, there's even the psychological thing about writing your own matarot, your own goals down, right? And they put them on I think in the mirror in the bathroom or something. I think there's people that say, and you repeat them in the morning or something, right? Like, so you write down your own goals and you see it in your own writing and you're repeating it. So you're repeating what you wrote. I do believe there's a very special psychological connection to such activity, right? Because you're responsible. You wrote that. And not only that, but there's a lot of things that maybe you'll surprise yourself with, that you learned something and you wrote the meaning of it, how you felt it was from your heart, right? And then you're having a time and you forgot about it, but you can always go back to what you wrote and say, look what I wrote here. This is exactly what I needed right now. So already you see, if you look a little closer, Rabbi Kook is showing us how to be responsible for our own spirituality, not only by learning a book and generating ideals from our internal self, but to write them down. It's mamash chashuv, very important, right? So he goes on and says, right, Bein hapratim ve'afilu ha'kolelim gam ken yoter yavin al yedei ma sheyichadesh bahem merucho. So he goes on and says, both in matters particular to themselves as individuals and even in general matters appropriate for others. The person, by writing this work, will gain in understanding through their own innovations.
That's
right?
for all learning, actually.
Tamshichi, continue.
Yeah.
So all learning how?
It's the principle of adult learning. It's a principle that you teach children how to learn is to write.
Right.
Like you listen and then you write it down.
Right.
You know, and write it down in your own understanding.
Right.
Because then you internalize it.
Exactly. So
I'm not writing things down because I don't.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But look, we got videos now. You do vidui, it's elo, nachon? I didn't write down vidui. But you know, the thing is, what's fascinating is that when you really look at like what he's writing here, you see that the Jews from Andalusia, from southern Spain, right? This would be where the Rambam came from. Rabbi Shmuel and Nagid, right? Many great Rabbeinu Bachya, who we just mentioned, right, came from southern Spain. This is why they're saying that, like, the sciences and mathematics and things of this nature, they also from Hashem, also from God. And sometimes you can be motivated and find deep meaning, not only from a logical standpoint from the secular studies, but there's a lot of ruchniut and spirituality that can also be found within these studies as well. I mean, we know, for instance, that Sir Isaac Newton, when they when they released his writings, a lot of it was on Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. Yeah, he was really into that. It actually motivated him, inspired him. Even the great Carl Jung, very fascinating, that he was really inspired by a chassid, by the Maggid of Midrash. And he said his whole psychological system is basically what the Maggid of Midrash talked about a long time ago, about self-discovery, self-awareness. But there's a key element in it, and even Carl Jung mentioned it, which is writing. You should write it. And it's so sad when people don't take that extra step to do it, because what it does is that it solidifies, in my opinion, it solidifies the person more in their learning, and makes them more responsible for their self-discovery. And it's not whimsical, you know. So we're going to go on here. It says, "Umi shehu kevar be'ofen ze shel hada'at sheyechol la'arik ma'aracha sichlit be'atzmo. אי אפשר לא לבוא אל השלמות אם לא יעבוד בשכלו בזה." And he goes on and says, the person by writing this work will gain understanding and innovations, but he also says, an individual who is already on an intellectual level, such that they can formulate their own intellectual analysis, can only attain perfection by utilizing their intellect. Now, what does this mean? So he has a note here for us. Utilizing their intellect. Here he uses the word sechel, which is the Hebrew letter sin, chaf, and lamed. Sechel is intelligence, right? So he says, in addition to serving as a personal Musar sefer to counter forgetfulness, there are two more reasons for the need to write on this topic, as mentioned in the work Mesilat Yesharim. Mesilat Yesharim was written by a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. And the Ramchal, you know, we love to give famous rabbis acronyms for their names, right? The Ramchal. First, to truly grasp the concepts of Avodat Hashem, divine service, right? One must dedicate time, energy, intellectual effort, just as one would to study other parts of the Torah. Second, in chapter 4, the Ramchal explains that acquiring watchfulness, he uses the word here, zihirut, to be watchful, right? Requires analyzing the messages of the Torah and applying them according to one's individual understanding. Since each person is unique, their reflections and what resonates with their souls will differ from one another. There's a famous Pirkei Avot that describes Hashem, the Creator, and it uses a nice example. It says, when man makes a coin and he imprints on the coin, it's one image. For all the coins, it's just one image. But when Hashem took the image of Adam Rishon, the first man, and he printed it upon creation, became different images, if you will, became different people, different, but it's from one coin press. But Hashem's coin press is not like man's coin press, right? Hashem's coin press, when it's used and it presses and it leaves a rishimu, an impression of His divine presence in the world, in physical matter, it manifests differently in cultures and religions and perspectives. This is why King David, for instance, says that a wise man learns from everyone. Why? Because even though that person may look different than me, they may have a different culture than me, they were still pressed from the same imprint that God used, which was Adam Kadmon, to create all humanity, right? So this is something that a person really has to be aware about.
I wonder if that and the importance of writing that imprint that Hashem stamp.
Yeah.
Released unique individual codes in each person.
Yes.
And so when they write, it's a release of their understanding, which is the message that Hashem is bringing out. But if we don't write, if we don't write it out, it stays in the thought.
Yeah.
It's not processed through the brain, through the speech.
Right. Right.
And so it's not developed.
Right. So no one knows your story because you've kept it all within and you haven't written it down. So in Rabbi Jose Faor's book, Horizontal Society, he describes something very interesting from Psalms. And our sages teach that the embryo inside of the mother's womb, our sages refer to it as a sefer, as a book. And the first thing that's formed in the womb from the child is the lev, the heart, that formulates the rest of the DNA code, as we would say, within the body of the child. And there are those who say the heart, when you look at it, it looks like it's almost, not round per se, but it has its form and its shape. But actually, whenever it's studied scientifically, it unfolds like a scroll. When they study it, like a scroll, like a Megillah. So the heart is the Megillah, the individualistic Megillah of the person going through their transmigration in life. Their story is waiting to be written, to be accessed. But like you just said brilliantly, if the person never really gets to know themselves and who they are in this world and write it down, and not only just physically write it down, but also internalizing it within themselves first and then writing it down, man, we're missing a great story here, right? It's like we're almost in a way getting cheated in a way, I think, because this person has so much potential,
contribute
to the tikkun olam. Nachon, bidiyuch. So when we look at bet, now we're going to bet, and we're going to see here what. Slicha. Yeah, no, we're in bet. So it says, Ele hema sidrei devarim shalehem raui lisader inyuna leholil la'atzmo ulitzulato. It says when a person begins to compose their own work on the duties of the heart, there are 5 topics above which one should formulate one's course of study in order to benefit oneself and others. Right? It's not just about me, right? It's about the collective. Hence, when we look back at what I said about Pirkei Avot, that Hashem, his stamp, he only had one stamp too, which was Adam HaRishon. But when he stamped it upon physical creation, it created different people, different personalities. So we have to keep that in mind. So he goes on and he says, contemplating and understanding about the true definition of faith, emunah. As it says here, did I mention it here? Well, he goes on and says, contemplating amitit geder ha'emunah tzurata kemo shehi meyushevet banefesh vehechrecha vegodel amitata she'ein gavul be'emet lemala mezei al pi devarim mevorarim ומאומתים בשכל ובחוש כמפורסם. He says, contemplating and understanding about the true definition of emunah. Right? What is the true definition of emunah? Its form as it resides in the soul, its necessity, and the magnitude of its truth, emet. There being no higher level than truth. Emet is emet, it's true. Based on what? Based on that which is established and verified by reason and the senses, as it uses here, the senses that it used here, where chush, the word chush, chushim, the senses, is well known. He says in the notes, the true definition of faith, this does not refer to what to believe in, but rather what the meaning and understanding of our belief is. That is, what we mean when we say, ani ma'amin, like the Rambam says, right? The 13 principles of faith. Ani ma'amin, I believe, right? That he mentions in the Guide of the Perplexed, where he writes that when reading my present treatise, bear in mind that by faith we do not understand merely that which is uttered with the lips, but also that which is apprehended by the soul. This means that the definition of faith, emunah, is much deeper than simply saying the words. Rather, it is a feeling, an action of the soul. And this is extremely important. And we know, you hear this even as a joke sometimes. But if you bring your wife a random gift and don't put any thought behind it, she generally does not appreciate that gift. Because, what'd you bring me this for? Hey, because you come to find out he brought you your favorite candy bar, but the reason he got it is because the one next to your favorite is his favorite. Right? Trust me, I'm guilty of this. So I'm guilty of this. Oh, she likes this candy bar, but I like this one. So that it wasn't you know what I'm saying? It wasn't something that was like the kavanah. You didn't do it for the right reasons, right? So the understand and what is the female? The female likes to inquire. She does chakira. She does investigation. Oh, why did you get me this? I mean, if it has a true intent and a true thought behind it, wow, it can be a daisy that you picked up from the side of the road. But if it's a story connected that you saw that reminded you of her, oh my God, she's going to try to keep that daisy forever, right?
The truth always comes out.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So the understanding of faith and the worldview of Rav Kook can be summed up in a unique quote found in Midot Haraya. Faith in God is the ground in which all values of life bloom. Midot Haraya Emunah, and see also Olat Reya, Volume 1. There's the sources. Additionally, see the essays that elaborate on the theme of faith that included Lights of Faith and so forth that he talks about. So we see that faith, he just gave a great, faith has to be cultivated. Because he mentioned the ground and it blooms. You have to cultivate faith. Faith is not something that, like we have in our society today when you go through a drive-through. Give me this and this and a large Coke or whatever, right? Or, or what? This isn't. It's not the internet. It's not Netflix, right? Imunah. It's something that has to be cultivated, and it has to be brought out. And hence, we go to the beginning of what Rabbi Kook said. One way to initiate this blooming and this bringing out of Imunah is by writing, right? Even if you're writing, you're going through a tough thing, and you're being honest about this situation you're going through. You're looking at it from all angles. And you may go back to that writing 3 months and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is what I wrote, but this is what I learned from this situation, because you wrote it down. And then the writing, it seems to be saying, could help cultivate your emunah even deeper, and to make something bloom from your writing that's beneficial to you.
Your writing has to be honest.
Yeah.
You can't superficially touch on and being careful and touching on just different points.
Right.
And then not go below the surface of the water because of various different reasons.
Exactly.
I don't know. I have unresolved issues. My feelings and things like I heard. I'm just going to touch about this, but I'm not going to go down, and then because it tells a whole different story.
Right. Exactly. And a lot of people are not willing to take that. Everything is so superficial today that people, they become possessed by superficiality, and they think that that's reality.
I think that's the reality.
And it's not reality. That's how come a person may be a great writer, and he may be a 20-year-old man or woman, and they've never been married, and they write a book on marriage and a good marriage. And they try to come tell people who've been married 50 years what a good marriage is. It's lo matim, as we say. It doesn't match. It doesn't match. You may know words. You may know the definition of these words. Anybody can learn a lot of big words like mayonnaise, and really get you going and get you excited. But then you find out later this person, the mayonnaise jar was empty.
Yeah.
They didn't really have any mayonnaise in the jar, metaphorically speaking, that to actually have flavor to life. But so that's how come we have to, first and foremost, I think what we're saying is that you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be.
Yeah.
You got to be honest with yourself. So we go into the second point, right? On this, to formulate a course of study for your benefit and others. So he goes on and says, Ba'amitat haborei yit'aleh, about the truth of the Creator may be exalted. B'psioto yitbarach v'yitromam begadlo hashgachato v'hamidot ha'kedushot hamiyuchasot lo v'inyanim ha'emunuyim hamidchayavim be'imutim mevorarim umechayavim chatunim bechotam ha'emet ve'atzedek hayosher hanoam hatoar ve'amiti. So he goes on and he says, may be exalted about his existence, may be blessed, may be exalted in his greatness, his providence, and his holy attributes ascribed to him, and the matters of faith that are compelling by virtue of clear and persuasive proofs, sealed with pure and true seal of truth, of justice, fairness, pleasantness. And he goes on and says, Ha mikubal kibul tiv'i el hada'at umarnin umarchiv umasameach et hanefesh, and which gladdens and broadens the soul. Now, it's interesting on these matters of the faith and the truth and arousing and the passion and the love for God, and it's referring to the chatumim bechotam ha'emet, and it says chotam is a seal. Chotam, it means it's been sealed, right? Ha'emet, but then it says vehatzedek. Vehatzedek. Tzedek, a tzaddik is a righteous person. Tzedek is like to be like righteous in your ways. If you, no matter how much learning you do, in your Torah learning, no matter how much you study a book, if it's not sealed with the seal of Emet, which is tzedek, which is righteousness, what do you have? How can you say that you are tzedek when you're making decisions on people or judging them wrong? You're doing lashon hara. You're speaking evil of people. You're doing even worse. You're doing motzeh shimra. Motzeh shimra is worse than lashon hara. Lashon hara is saying something that's true about the person, but you shouldn't, right? Did you know that person, even though I see they're religious now, but you know in the past they used to whatever, right? Motzeh shimra, as a matter of fact, halakhically, it falls under civil law in Judaism, in Yahadut Shalom. Meaning that you make an accusation about somebody that they're a ganaf, they're a thief, or posheya, they're a criminal, right? Even though it's not true, now you've created a motzeh shimra on this person, which is an evil name. So you create an evil name upon them. This falls under civil law, which, by the way, the penalties, one way or the other, are more severe, especially if they take you to a bet din, and it's proven that you have done motzeh shimra on this person, then there's a big fine for it, right? Whatever the rabbanim decide. But here's the thing: the rabbis that are on a bet din, a dayan, he has to give a mishpat tzedek. He has to give a righteous judgment, right? Oh, we're going to talk about it tonight in the class from 8 to 9. What is a mishpat tzedek? And what kind of judges are supposed to be over Am Yisrael? I'll give you one character trait they're supposed to have. They're supposed to hate money. The judges are supposed to hate money. But unfortunately, many people today say, where are you going to find someone who hates money, right? As a matter of fact, there's a joke from it's a joke, but it's true. The Kotzker Rebbe was a great rabbi, and his students were reading this about the criteria to be a judge in Israel. And they said, Rebbe, it says they're supposed to hate money. Where are we going to find a judge who hates money? And the Kotzker Rebbe said, don't worry, if you pay enough, you'll find someone who hates. You'll find someone who, if you pay enough money, you'll find someone.
I was reading the Shabbat, reading some Chafetz Chaim.
Yeah.
And it's about Lashon Hara and how, it is the worst sin.
Mm-hmm.
And that when one speaks Lashon Hara or gossips, that it releases, because the words are things and things release reality.
Mm-hmm.
It releases these evil natures, spirits, and things against the person, but also against the person who spoke it.
Beta.
So that what you speak of somebody is going to come back
Nachon.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. One of the things we'll learn in the beginning of this course from Rabbi Chaim David Halevi, starting tonight, that a judge needs to understand something. When they're getting ready to step in the position of judging, it says that the gates or the pit of Sheol, of Gehinnom, of hell opens, and it's watching to make sure you do a righteous judgment. If you don't, then that judge will be pulled down, and those types of ruchot ra'ot, those bad spirits, if you will, that will be reciprocated upon that judge if he renders an unjust judgment. So you have to understand, when you step in the role of judging, there's a famous expression. I know Rebbe Nachman of Breslev used to be big on saying this. I forgot exactly where he pulled the quote from, but he says that, you know what, it's okay. You know what Hashem says? Come, you want to judge this person? Come, judge them. But first we're going to start with you. Yeah? So we start with you, and then we go to them. This has a way of cooling down the person's vigor in order, if they think upon it. Some people don't matter, Eartha. They're going to just go ahead and judge anyways, right? That's the world we live in, unfortunately. But it's a good point. So we're going on now to Gimel. So in Gimel, it says, Ba'amitat HaTorah Asher B'Yadenu Me'et Adon Kol HaMa'asim Yitbarach Shemo Lero'eh Ne'iman Moshe Rabbeinu Ava Shalom. It says about the truth of the Torah which we possess from the master of all deeds, may his name be blessed, and which was given to a faithful shepherd, our master Moshe, of blessed memory. Begodel Kiddushata Be'romimut Me'alata Be'hadrat Ora. He says, and which was given to a faithful shepherd Moshe of blessed memory, about the magnitude of the Torah's holiness, right? Begodel Kiddushata, about the greatness of its holiness. Beromimut Ma'alata Behadrat Ora. And it's light, right? The Torah is a great light. And it says further, it says, Uvegodel Ashra Shemi Asheret Lehogea Ledorshea Be'emet Betamim Bikdushat Mitzvotea Vehadaran. And it says, and about the magnitude of the Torah's holiness, about its exalted status, about the splendor of its luminance, about the magnitude of bliss with which it endows those who study and contemplate it sincerely and purely, right? And he goes on and says here at the end, Ve'ech shehi ziv ha'olam ushlemuto behechreach ve'hakara berura bidvarim berurim u'meumatim. And it says, and about the sanctity of its commandments and their splendor, and how it is the world's radiance and perfection, as is compelling true and recognized by means of clear and proven ideals. Now, that's interesting. I just want to comment about that. So he talks about the proven ideals. He gives you a source to go look at. But if we look at the truth of Torah, this means that the Torah that we possess today is the same one that was given to Moshe at Mount Sinai. You have to believe this. If you don't believe this, and many people don't, right? And many people, Yehudim, hem lo ma'amim et zeh. They don't believe this. Many Jews today, secular, smolim, they don't believe this. It's okay. It's their choice, right? Hashem give people the choice to believe or not believe. But if you believe in Yahadut Shelanu, in our religion, you have to believe that the Torah that we have today was the same one that Moshe Rabbeinu had. Now, if you come to that revelation and you understand that it is the same Torah, then wow. Why is that important? Because we know that the Torah, as far as our religion is concerned, it wasn't given secretly. It wasn't given behind closed doors. They didn't have a meeting to have a meeting to get the Torah, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, when he brought the Torah down, it was in a midbar. It was in a desert. The most hopeless place a person could maybe be, right? A desert. No water, food, it's hot, it's dry. The Torah comes there in that place. The most hopeless place. But Hashem gave it. So believing that, we know that there's this special connection to the Torah that can elevate any individual if they cling to it, no matter where they're at in their life, no matter how low they are. Namuch, right? The Torah has the ability to elevate anyone and to elevate them, right? To bring them up. Because the Torah of Moshe, as we say, the Torah of Moshe is emet. It's a true Torah. Like when we say the prayers with the kids in the morning, right? Yigdal, right? The prayer Yigdal. That the Torah of Moses, the most faithful shepherd in all of Hashem's house, it's a Torah emet. It's a true Torah. It's not fake. It's not false. But the problem is, many people, superficiality, like we talked about, they only go superficial into the Torah. They don't want to go beyond it. Because I'll tell you why I think, and you can tell me what you think. I think one of the reasons why people don't understand the importance of going beyond superficial learning of Torah is because it's going to cause them to take a hard look at themselves within the storylines of the Torah, and awakening within them in their subconsciousness to the conscious mind, causing change. And I think people don't like the change. I think they want the status quo, Eartha. I think they want to just be happy where they're at with their, and I'm sorry to say it, with Fiddler on the Roof Judaism, right? As long as I got my Fiddler on the Roof and a jar of gefilte fish and everything, and I speak some Yiddish, I'm good to go, right? And the Jews, even on the Sephardic side, also, like, they're happy, don't bother them, whatever. But they don't want to go deeper than that.
I think they don't know, they don't see the jewels.
Right.
What did I read this story, and I don't know if it was in one of Zechariah's children's books or if it was in that one of the books, but it was a story. Oh, I know where it was. It was Rabbi. I can't think of his name right, but anyway, It's on the Midrash. He wrote a book about the Midrash.
Yeah,
and, he said there's this house.
Yeah.
And so, these Jews wanted to turn the house into a synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
And so one would look back, and maybe they didn't take care of the house really well at first. And so there was like afterthoughts. If I knew this house was going to be a Torah, a synagogue, I would have taken care of it better. If I knew that this was the place where the ark was going to be, I would have taken care of that spot better.
Right.
If I would have known that this person would become a rabbi, I wouldn't have been acting all crazy around the person. So, those are jewels, and we don't. In our life, like right now, we think this is, what was it? Eat and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we will die.
Yeah.
But we don't see ourselves in the process of a jewel. If I would have known that, if I'm shown this is the jewel that you would have had if you would have kept on going and learning. This is the jewel that you would have become.
That's beautiful.
And so people. So when you don't know, if you don't know, you think that you're at that point.
Yeah.
But with pressure.
Yeah.
And with stress, what happens to the olive? With pressure, with stress, it produces a beautiful oil.
Yeah.
But
with the coal, it produces a diamond.
Yeah.
Right.
For us.
Yeah.
With pressure and with stress, we surrender.
Yeah, I'm done. It's interesting. You said something about a process. The Hebrew word for process is ta'arich. Okay? But the shorsh of this word also comes from the word, it says erich. It comes from the word erich. Erich means value. Ein resh chaf sofit. Erich. It means value. Erichim, values. Okay? You never really discover your values until you press yourself into something to discover it, till you engage. So the tarikh, the process of developing erechim, values, it's difficult. It's not easy, right? So you need a guide. You need something. You need a madrich. You need a guide to guide you in the tarikh, and that's the Torah shel Moshe Rabbeinu. Nachon, it's the Torah of Moses. Now the thing is too, is that when you're looking at the expression arucha means a length of time. It takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a while because the process, I know people that we love football in America, right? I love football. So one of the things, a famous coach, Nick Saban from the Alabama Crimson Tide, he always talks about the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. It is hard. You have to be patient. But if you trust the process, it's going to pay off. You'll end up in the NFL. You'll end up making what you need. You'll get a great college education. He has a process. He believes in that process. He follows that process, right? And sometimes people don't like the process. Sometimes they want to transfer out. They want to go to another system and do their process, right? And that's fine. They have that option. And I hate to say it, there have been, for Rabbi Yitzhak of Dominaco, a famous rabbi, Talmudist and Kabbalist, once said that we've always had Jews who've opted out of Judaism, and we will continue to all the way up until Mashiach comes. There will be Jews who opt out because they don't want to be part of the Tarikh. They don't want to be part of it. And now a lot of times they'll tell you, I don't want to be part of it because the representatives of that Tarikh, the rabbis, right, they haven't always been good to me. They've, or the community, the Kila, I don't like the way they behave, right? I understand. But you cannot forsake, what's the expression, Eartha? You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, yeah? So the baby, if you will, is the Torah. You don't want to throw the Torah out. You cling to the Torah. You stick with the Torah. You have to strengthen yourself through it and allow Hashem to help you through the Tarikh. The Tarikh we're currently going through right now, presently, right? It's not an easy thing. We see world around us, economy's terrible, wars are going to break out, talks of nuclear war, all kinds of liars, people that this side hates this side. Look, we'll talk about just our own people. This one won't eat this shchita of chicken because their Rebbe 200 years ago called the other Rebbe's mama a name or something, whatever, and I'm making that up, but it's that nonsensical. It's like they mad over stuff and they holding a grudge. I tell you what, many times when I hear of these communities that have these particular type of grudges, it's very feudalistic. It reminds me of my own people being from the South. being from Kentucky, very fatalistic and feudalistic. You know what I mean? Oh, you hurt my honor. The only thing I didn't say sir to you. I know you hurt my honor. I'm gonna fight you. Let's go out. Let's knife fight. Let's fist fight. I'm serious. That's how out of whack it is. Now people say, hey, what are you talking about, Ephraim? No one's acting like that. No, I understand no one's doing a knife fight and fist fight, but they are with their words. They insulting the other one, even though the other one is keeping kasher and he holds Bet Yosef Shchita and but still yet it's not good enough for you. Why? Because this one's Sephardic and we don't really, and we're Ashkenazi and all of these things. Let me tell you something. Until our community can admit there is no Achdut, stop playing. There's no Achdut. Admit it. We're torn apart as community. Until we quit playing this game, like you mentioned, liars. We're lying to ourselves. It's not true. We are not together. The first part of the community, in my opinion, Ladati, that needs to get together is the religious communities. They need to put things aside. I'm not talking about changing nusach to your siddur and stuff. I'm talking about seeking the good that each one of us does and unifying ourselves. But Bezrat Hashem, maybe we'll live to see it. I don't know. But definitely. But Rabbi Kook, though, he takes us on here. And, he's going to mention the oral law. That old oral law, the Torah Shabbat Peh, right? People don't like that Torah Shabbat Peh, man.
Yeah, right.
The thing that I studied to become a rabbi.
Chorsky,
Right?
that's good. The Rabbi Chorsky.
Chorsky, yeah. So, Bi'amiti Torah Shabbat Peh, right? The Shabbat Peh, the oral Torah, right? Shetziva Kadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe Rabbeinu Aval Shalom. Shanimsera lechachamim dor lador. Right, about the oral law which the Holy One Blessed Be commanded our Master Moses' blessed memory, and which was transmitted to the sages from one generation to the next. Like I'm learning with Z on Wednesdays, right? The Torah of Moshe, Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, right? Pass it on to Yoshua passing it on, right? So the oral Torah is contained in what? He says here. It says, Nichlalim b'Mishnah, b'Talmud, b'Sifrei Chazal, hanilvim lahem. And it says, Begodel hamitata, ukedushata, ve'ora, habahir, uve'otzem, hatzlachat ha'holchim, bin tivoteha, uvikedushat, hanechalim, hamit pashtim, mimena. And he goes on, he says here in the book, he says that it's contained in the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the works of the sages of blessed memory that are associated with them, about the magnitude of the oral law's truth and sanctity, and the bright luminance and the greatness of the attainments of those who walk in its path, about the sanctity of the streams that flow from it. If you're never engaging in the oral Torah to truly understand it, and if you're not learning from a good source, if you only learning, I'm just going to be honest with you. Do you know there are some people, there are some even rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, who will tell people we don't want people to think too much for themselves. They say this. And this is incorrect. This is not Yahadut, Judaism. This is not Judaism. This is not correct. Look, we've accepted upon ourselves the Shulchan Aruch, especially the Jews from Sepharad, right? From Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Rambam. You have the Rosh, the famous Ashkenaz rabbi, the Rosh. You have Magen Avraham. You have Rabbi Kiva Eger. You have the Khatam Sofer. You have the Mishnah Berurah. So we have a halacha, Ashkenaz and Sepharad. We have a beautiful Torah that we all read every Monday, Thursday, and on Shabbat. We have a Torah. It's one Torah. It's one nation. It's one land, right? So the thing, though, is that the oral Torah is something, though, that you have to have. You have to be engaged with it. So when someone telling you, hey, don't think for yourself, ma pitom, what are you talking about? I need to know the oral Torah. I need to know the laws of keeping a kitchen that's kasher. I need to know the laws of kashrut, right? I understand that, Todah La'el, we have a heksharim today, right? Heksher. This was not always the case. It was not always the case that there were heksharim, right? A rabbi needed to know this stuff, right? They needed to know the laws of Batal B'Shishim and things of this nature. So, but thank God there are hekshers. It helps out a lot, right? It's a big business. Anyways, so we're moving on to 5. And I think that will take us up. Yeah, well, we're getting there. So, Bi'amitit Chokhmat HaKabbalah Behechrak Mitziuta Behatzlachat Yod E Ve'oskeha. It says about the truth of the Kabbalistic knowledge, right? Which is what? Kabbalah refers to the Jewish mysticism, right? The esoteric and inner aspects of Torah, it's wisdom and knowledge. Rav Kook himself defines Kabbalah as the domain that deals with the knowledge of God, the domain of pure faith that stems from within the soul and emanates from the source of life, right? That's what he's talking about. Now he goes on and he says, Betoalta haklalit ve'shehi mit romamat me'al kol chokhma umit naset mikol yediyah hechreach ha'esek ba le'anshei segula b'tarat lev v'simcha, like a pure heart, v'simcha Torah, pure joy, v'hatznea lechet lema'an da'at et Hashem uledavka bo yitale. And he goes on and says about the necessity for its existence, about the attainments of those who know it and are involved in it, about its universal benefit, that it is exalted beyond any sort of wisdom and is superior to any sort of knowledge, the necessity for the elite Torah scholars to engage in it with purity of heart and pure joy, modesty, in order to know the Lord and to cleave to Him, may be exalted. So to cling to God and to learn Kabbalah, it's not meant for someone who is a great chacham, maybe even in their Torah knowledge, to go around and woo people, right? It's because that individual first needs to deepen their emunah, and they need to have the clinging, devikut, to God. If you're clinging to God, then probably one of the biggest manifestations in your character and your midah is probably going to be anava, which is humility, anavut. Why humility? Because it's the Torah of Moshe. If you're following in the footsteps of Moshe, hello, where's the anava? That's all I'm seeing is gava. I'm seeing arrogance, right? I see arrogance. I don't see anava. There's some arrogant people even in our own community, right? They say nonsensical, foolish things. I was born on top of the hill. I don't know what it's like to be like these people that have never been religious or da-da-da-da. You have people who say these foolish things, right? This is not anava. This is not Torah Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the Torah of Doeg, or Doeg, slicha. Moshe shel Doeg. Doeg was the number one Torah scholar during the times of King David. But he was a Rasha. He knew Torah, right? He knew all the hechsherim in the supermarket, right? So, but he spoke bad about David. He had all of the kings. I mean, all the kings. He had all the Kohanim killed in the city of Ai, right, or On. And he came and they killed all of the King Shaul came and he killed all the Kohanim in that city because they helped King David. They gave him something to eat and supported him, right? So, but Doeg is the one who started this. Doeg is the one who brought up the questioning of King David's legitimacy, because of his grandmother Ruth being a Gerut, right? And so this is something that people, when they twist their Torah knowledge, but they use it for reasons of gava. So we are now going to look at Masha Yofi.